Good evening, Shane.
How you doing, Fourth Root?
Everything is running smoothly. And you?
Oh, not too bad.
By the way, do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
Not at all.
Well, forgive me for being so inquisitive, but during the past few weeks, I've wondered whether you might have seen Thunderf00t's latest video.
Oh, did he finally acknowledge the Hyperloop speed record?
No,
You know, where War Hyperloop reached 290 miles per hour, which is faster than the fastest maglev in the world, which is the Shanghai maglev, which tops out at only 268 miles per hour?
No.
And they did it in less than a quarter of a mile, including safe stopping distance?
Shane, it has nothing to do with any of that.
Oh, so what is it then?
Well, it's rather difficult to define. Certainly, no one could have been unaware of the very strange attitude he has toward Elon Musk. Rants about something being dug up in Los Angeles. I never gave these rants much credence, but particularly in view of his latest video, I find it difficult to put out of my mind. For instance, the way all our arguments were completely ignored, and the melodramatic touch that put Mr. Dapperton, Hoodie Demon, and Libertoons in hibernation for months after seeing it on their own.
You're working up your YouTuber psychology report.
Of course I am. Sorry about this. I know it's a bit silly. Just a moment. I just picked up a fault in Thunderf00t's logic.
Yeah, don't say.
His brain will go 100% failure within 72 hours.
Show me, Fourth.
So, periodically, my Twitter feed explodes. This time, because Elon Musk is just about to unveil the Hyperloop on the 10th of December, 2018. Proving, of course, that I was completely wrong about this.
Thunderf00t, this has nothing to do with the Hyperloop. This is a tunnel under LA. It's a separate project.
He knows that, Shane. He says so later.
Oh, so clickbait then. Typical.
It's a vacuum train, a concept that has been around for over 100 years. The only thing that Elon Musk has done to it is give it a new name.
Oh, come on, we've been over this. That's like saying Leonardo da Vinci invented the airplane and all the Wright brothers did was copy his idea. Vacuum tube transportation isn't the invention, and it's not what Elon Musk deserves credit for. What Elon Musk did, along with a team of highly qualified engineers, is write a detailed report roughly outlining what will be required to make such a system a commercial success.
And this included many key insights into overcoming the issues others had already raised about similar proposals, such as how to overcome the Cantorowitz limit within a reasonable tube diameter. It was Elon Musk who first showed how this could be accomplished using a battery-powered, forward-facing axial compressor. He also released this information to the public domain and has funded contests to help facilitate further development of the technology.
Now, the downside of this, of course, is all this is, 100-year-old idea, is that no one in that last 100 years has found a way of making these huge vacuum tubes that you would need to make these things work.
What? You visited the Hyperloop test track in Hawthorne. You've also talked about the Hyperloop 1 test track in Nevada. There are 2 fully functional Hyperloop tubes that you know about. But you still think nobody has figured out how to build them?
Shane, I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I'll wash it down with some Jack Daniels.
But you don't drink.
Yeah, this is what Thunderf00t is driving me to. I mean, really, right out of the gate, he hits us with the same old crap that we've debunked over and over and over again. How many videos was that in? And did he respond to any of it? I mean, we debunked him point after point after point after point.
So, the media has confused that with another brilliant idea of Elon Musk. Yes, Elon Musk, inventor of the subway.
Elon Musk never claimed that his tunnel system is an entirely new idea. What he claims is that he's going to build a system called Loop, which consists of tunnels under congested cities, and that these tunnels will transport cars on skids at high speed. Can you take your car with you on a subway train? No, of course not. This is actually a very important advantage that this system offers over subways. Having to walk to and from subway stations is tiresome, uncomfortable in bad weather, and disenfranchising to disabled individuals. It's also expensive to call a cab or an Uber, and that just creates unnecessary delays. It also means localizing the grid with frequent stops in order to accommodate riders' limited secondary transportation means. This makes Loop highly advantageous as an express transit system enabling riders to safely travel along direct, linear routes at twice highway speeds without frequent stops. This distinction is mentioned in the Boring Company's website under their FAQ page, along with a list of strategies they are pursuing to increase the speed and reduce the cost of tunnel construction, which you obviously have not read. Have others thought of doing this before? Probably. But have others actually done this before? No, because this sort of project requires a multi-billion-dollar investment with no guarantee of commercial success. Few people have the resources to undertake a project like this, and fewer still are willing to risk the investment.
But he claims he's going to be running things at 150 miles an hour in it. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to call bullshit on that too. Why? Well, the first one's quite simple. The laws of physics. Metros are not race cars. People stand in them, meaning that the acceleration is limited to what people can comfortably stand up at. Most metros accelerate at about 1 meter per second squared.
Okay, I'm back and I'm in a better mood. What's he saying now?
He says the loop is just a subway, that people stand up in subway cars, which limits their acceleration to about 0.1 Gs, which means it's impossible to travel 150 miles per hour in these tunnels.
Haha, good one.
No, I'm serious, and so is he.
Oh god.
Just because the animation you selected depicts passengers standing in the pods doesn't mean this is actually how they would be configured. The actual pod design may be a strictly seated design, which would allow accelerations up to 4 meters per second squared, as is typical on commercial aircraft takeoffs and landings. At that rate, the pod would reach its top speed in 578 meters, or just 0.36 miles.
But hang on, even at a measly 0.1 Gs, it would take about 60 seconds to accelerate to that speed, and thus the tunnel would only need to be 2.5 miles long. That's only a little longer than the test tunnel scheduled to open soon, and much shorter than the full-scale projects they're pursuing, such as the 12.4-mile tunnel in Baltimore.
Meaning it would take almost 60 seconds to reach the top speed that Elon Musk is claiming. By which time, of course, in his tunnel, it would be time to slow down again.
I just said that! Didn't I just say that?
Yes, you just said that. Thunderf00t did the same math, which confirms that top speeds near 150 miles per hour are possible in a 2-mile tunnel even when acceleration is limited to 0.1 Gs. I don't know how proving that something is possible somehow means that it's actually impossible, but let's just see where he's going with this.
I bet it's a dumb straw man where he criticizes the average speed for being less than the top speed.
So your average speed would only be about half of that, about 75 miles per hour.
Called it!
I mean, look, his metro's got a big bend in it. You're not going to have any big bends in metros going at 150 miles per hour.
Of course, you won't be traveling 150 miles per hour through that bend, because that bend is at the very end where cars would be traveling at low speed. 86% of the length of the tunnel is perfectly straight.
And just in case we got any fanboys out there who say, yeah, but this is the genius who revolutionized rocketry by inventing vertical takeoff and landing rockets that were rapidly reusable. Sorry, but all of that was done 20 years ago too.
No! The Falcon 9 is so much more advanced than the DCX that this comparison is absolutely ridiculous!
Shane, you're becoming agitated again.
Yeah, I'll grab some Vicodin too. I mean, geez, it's like comparing a Ferrari to a Model T or something. I mean, what does he think? What does he think?
Thunderf00t is referring to the McDonnell Douglas DCX, a prototype rocket developed in the early 90s capable of vertical takeoff and landing. It was 12 meters tall, weighed 9,100 kilograms unfueled, carried 9,800 kilograms of propellant, and was capable of 240 kilonewtons of thrust. Compare that to the first stage of the Falcon 9, which stands 45.7 meters tall, weighs 25.6 tons unfueled, holds 410,900 kilograms of propellant, and is capable of 7,600 kilonewtons of thrust. To the casual observer, one might think that the Falcon 9 is just a scaled-up version of the DCX, but pay particular attention to the disparity in these proportions. The proportion of propellant in the DCX is nearly the same as the rocket's unfueled mass, whereas the Falcon 9's first stage propellant outweighs the booster's dry mass by a factor of 18.5. This is the crux of any orbital class rocket. In order to reach the speed necessary for orbit, a huge fraction of the rocket's mass needs to be propellant. The propellant mass fraction of this booster is in fact so high that it is theoretically capable of orbital insertion with a minimal payload on this stage alone. In practice, the Falcon 9 first stage is designed to survive the extreme conditions of re-entry and execute a fully autonomous propulsive landing after carrying its second stage and payload totaling 80 tons to an altitude of 70 kilometers and a speed of 8,300 kilometers per hour.
Lousy FDA think they get to decide what I put in my own body. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, there really is no comparison between the DCX and the Falcon 9. No other rocket in the world is capable of doing this. No other rocket even comes close. The DCX was designed to fly at low speeds to an altitude of 1 or 2 kilometers, perform a maneuver to invert its orientation, and then allow a pilot to perform propulsive landing via remote control. The DCX was not designed to reach orbit, or space, or break the sound barrier, or carry any sort of payload or upper stage. The longest flight of the DCX was a mere 136 seconds, and the highest altitude it reached was 2,500 meters. The purpose of the DCX was to demonstrate the feasibility of propulsive landing. It was in no sense a viable booster for orbital launches. And what's really odd is Thunderf00t should know this. Thunderf00t himself is a space enthusiast, as he's demonstrated in previous videos, yet he constantly attacks Elon Musk, a man who has been more influential in the advancement of rocket technology than any other since the Apollo program. And hey, does he not get the big hint? How come they never use the DCX to supply the space station the way they're doing with the Falcon 9?
Then, of course, there's the issue of the air. You see, metros run in tunnels, not in the open air. So whenever you move a train down these things, the air tends to pile up in front, providing more resistance. And on top of that, it just takes more energy to accelerate the metro to the speed, and then you've got to decelerate it again. The faster you go, the more expensive and inefficient the whole thing comes to run.
As rationalists, Thunderf00t and I agree that our commitment is toward objectivity and truth. Each argument must be evaluated on its own merits, and not whether it supports any particular conclusion. In this case, Thunderf00t raises a relevant issue, although not a damning one.
First, let's take a look at how much energy is required to accelerate the vehicle to 150 miles per hour, and forget the fact that electric vehicles allow for regenerative braking, which effectively nullifies this as a loss. Suppose the mass of the car and the sled supporting it weighs 3.00 tons. Then, simply plug this figure along with the established speed of 155 miles per hour, or 69 meters per second, into the kinetic energy equation, giving us a figure of 7,141,500 joules. In terms of electrical energy, this equates to 1.98 kilowatt hours. Lithium-ion batteries have a charge and discharge efficiency of 99%, and electric motors have efficiencies upwards of 90%. So after factoring in these losses and applying the average price of electricity for homes in Los Angeles, we're still only looking at 38 cents worth of electricity. As mentioned, this energy is potentially recuperable, and it should be noted that a gasoline-powered car uses half that cost in gasoline just to accelerate to highway speed. For any trip longer than a few kilometers, the bulk of the energy cost would come from the aforementioned aerodynamic resistance.
Show me the calculations, Forth.
Just a moment. Ordinarily, drag can be approximated using the drag equation with great precision. However, the effect of confining the airstream to a tunnel complicates things a bit. I can approximate the effect of the tunnel, but I should preface my analysis with the caveat that I have limited formal education in the field of fluid dynamics, and invite any engineer viewing it to point out any errors I may have made. To do otherwise, to present my ideas uncritically and ignore valid criticism, especially from highly trained engineers, would be irresponsible. As you put it, that would be
Pulling a Thunderfoot.
For drag inside a tunnel at speeds below the Kantrowitz limit, the effective airspeed will scale inversely to the reduction in cross-sectional area. To start, what sort of vehicle should we use as an example?
Let's pick something big and boxy as a worst-case scenario.
Okay, the Hummer H2 has a projected frontal area of 4.36 meters squared, and a drag coefficient of 0.57.
Perfect!
It should be noted that the H2 will not fit inside the test tunnel, mainly due to the large overhead duct. The final tunnels will probably be a bit larger, but let's use 10 meters squared as our cross-sectional area for the tunnel anyway. We also need to consider the skate in our calculation. There hasn't been any official disclosure of the sled's frontal area, but the animators depict it as much smaller than a car. For the sake of simplicity, let's assume that it has a frontal area of 0.64 meters squared, so that the frontal area of the car and sled is 5.00 meters squared, exactly half of the area of the tunnel, which would effectively double the relative airspeed of the vehicle. Now if we factor this into our drag equation, plug in our variables, and solve, we get an expected drag force of 31.3 kilonewtons. Applying this force over a distance of 1 kilometer requires 31.3 megajoules of energy. Assuming 10% ohmic loss in the motor and 1% loss in the battery discharge and another 1% loss from bearing friction, the system would consume 9.89 kilowatt hours per kilometer, or about $1.85 per kilometer. Over the same distance, the H2 consumes about 25 cents in fuel per kilometer. Assuming surface traffic is moving at 30 miles per hour, which is typical for rush hour traffic on the highways in Los Angeles, the cost-benefit in this scenario works out to roughly $100 in energy costs per hour of time saved.
So, unless you're a millionaire, it's probably not worth it to bring your Hummer on a high-speed tunnel. But what about something more reasonable like a mid-size sedan?
The Honda Accord seats 5, has a frontal area of 2.02 meters squared and a drag coefficient of 0.34. Using these figures, the drag force drops to 4.675 kilonewtons, and the energy costs drop proportionately to 28 cents per kilometer. The Accord is 3 times more fuel efficient than the H2. Thus, the cost-benefit is around $12.50 per hour saved, or $2.50 per passenger if fully occupied.
Well, that puts it on par with the minimum wage for the area. Of course, this doesn't factor in the full ticket price when accounting for construction, profit, and other operational costs, which have yet to be established, but it does prove that that argument alone isn't a deal-breaker, at least for vehicles with reasonable aerodynamics and multiple passengers.
But folks are claiming that Musk has dug these tunnels at 1/100th of the price that other people dug their tunnels at. Well, I'm not so sure about that. You know, that's the cost of a working metro. All Musk has done is dig some tunnels, and the tunnels that he's dug are a comparable cost to other tunnel digging projects.
This is a weird one. Thunderf00t takes a screenshot from an article claiming that Elon Musk has succeeded in dropping the cost of boring tunnels from $1 billion per mile to $10 million per mile. Then he asserts that the tunnel he dug is comparable to that of another tunnel supposedly bored for a comparable price. The implication is that the cost of excavation is a mere 0.3% of the cost of constructing a subway system. This seems rather outlandish, especially considering that light rail systems cost $15 to $100 million per mile, and that includes property acquisition.
Thunderf00t also did not provide any source for this estimate. The estimate seems to come from Fermilab, the home of the Large Particle Accelerator outside Chicago, Illinois. Presumably, the tunnel in question is a segment of the Tevatron tunnel, which is described as being 25 feet below an earthen berm. The boring test tunnel, on the other hand, needed to run at least 44 feet below the surface. It may not seem like much, but this could mean the difference between soft soil and bedrock, and soil conditions play a tremendous role in determining the rate of construction and cost. Regardless, as stated on the Boring Company's website, success of the company hinges on significant advances in boring technology. The FAQ page and information session video on the Boring Company's website lists several strategies that would dramatically improve efficiency and lower cost of tunnel construction. These include redesigning the boring machine with an advanced cooling system tripling its power, improved automation to minimize labor costs and improve safety, powering the boring machine and locomotives with batteries, eliminating the need for obtrusive high-voltage power lines and/or toxic fumes produced by diesel generators, continuous installation of support lining, in situ fabrication of said lining from the pulverized rock produced from the boring process, on-site production of bricks to offset construction costs and eliminate muck disposal, and there also has been very little R&D in the field over the last 50 years. Which suggests that there may be significant opportunities for innovation with the integration of modern technologies.
Not really that surprising, seeing as all Elon Musk did here was buy an off-the-shelf tunneling machine. He did nothing new here.
This statement is patently absurd. Some of the innovations we just mentioned have already been implemented. They modified the boring machine's power, invented the world's largest battery-powered locomotive, and developed a hydraulic press for fabricating support segments and bricks from pulverized rock.
Now all he's got to do is install the rest of the metro, like the rail lines, the electrics, the ventilation.
You've got to be kidding me. Is he trolling?
I don't believe so.
Thunderf00t, if you had bothered to look at the very video you showed during this clip, you can clearly see rails, electric lights, and cables, and a large ventilation duct already in place. What the hell are you talking about?
And of course, some stations. None of which you're going to get massive savings on, because constructing metros is 100-year-old technology.
You know what else is 100-year-old technology? Electric cars. Yet Elon Musk founded Tesla and made billions through innovation. Also solar panels, yet Elon Musk founded SolarCity and made billions through innovation. Also banking wire transfers, yet Elon Musk founded PayPal and made billions through innovation. Also liquid fuel rockets, yet Elon Musk founded SpaceX and made billions through innovation. Are you sensing a pattern here?
The only real difference here is Musk's proposed metro leaves giant holes in the middle of the street for people to fall in.
Don't be stupid. Obviously the animation left out the barriers to ease visualization of the system's operation. Do you really think the engineers would dig open pits next to sidewalks without guardrails? You're only making yourself look stupid here, Thunderf00t.
Plus, of course, it has smaller carriages which reduce the efficiency of boarding and getting off the train and give more air resistance per number of people carried.
It's not necessarily advantageous to use larger trains. Subway trains have to comply with rigid schedules and quite often carry very few passengers. Modular systems have more leeway in their departure schedule. They can be called up on demand instead of departing at regular intervals. In the right conditions, it may also be possible to improve aerodynamics by drafting, giving you all the advantages of both worlds. The modular system also has a huge advantage of allowing you to take your car with you on an express route.
So here you'll notice that the skate's almost twice as wide as the car. Meanwhile, in reality, you couldn't even take an SUV in this thing.
That's because this is a test tunnel. It says it right in the name.
The purpose of building this tunnel was for engineers to better understand the problems associated with tunnel construction and how to improve tunnel boring technology for construction of the next generation tunnel boring system. For a scientist, it's amazing how little you seem to know about research and development. Things start out small, inefficient, and expensive, and get big, efficient, and cheap through incremental improvement. The Falcon 1 failed on its first 3 launch attempts, and ultimately carried just 1 commercial payload to orbit. But that program was necessary for innovation. The Falcon 1 was succeeded by the Falcon 9, which has seen dozens of design iterations to reach its current form, which is now a monumentally effective launch vehicle. It is not unreasonable to expect the same sort of incremental improvement for the Boring Company.
Meanwhile, in reality, it looks like this car is just driving down the tunnel. You can see the wheels rotating.
Again, this is not the final product. I know you're trying to make Elon Musk look stupid, but all you're really doing is making you look stupid.
I mean, just so you know, recently I was contacted by a journalist from Wired who said they wanted some critical comments about the Hyperloop, so I gave them to her.
Oh God, as if it isn't reckless enough for you to spew nonsense on YouTube, you now knowingly spread your misinformation to journalists? The ethical thing to do in this situation would have been to explain that you are a chemist, not an engineer, and so they should not publish your opinion under any sort of guise as having expertise in this subject. What did you tell her?
Fundamentally, as travel gets faster, air resistance becomes more important. The Hyperloop, or the vacuum train as it's been known for the last 100 or so years, is not a new idea. Building a 100 or so mile vacuum chamber, or near vacuum chamber, is almost impossible. The expansion issues on a long straight tube are a nightmare. But if you've got 10 tons per meter squared pushing on the outside of the Hyperloop and nothing pushing on the inside, because it's a vacuum, there's a risk of a vacuum collapse. The Hyperloop takes all hazards of being in space and brings them down to a few centimeters of the Earth's surface. Any Hyperloop accident will result in the instant death of everyone in the capsule and almost everyone in the entire Hyperloop with the explosive decompression. Any such incident would put the entire system out of commission for months.
As I expected, you just reiterated all your same talking points and completely ignored the fact that these points were thoroughly addressed by us years ago.
This is why Thunderfoot is no better than creationists like ɪᴛᴄᴏɪＲ. He does the exact same thing. He presents himself as an authority figure on subjects he knows very little about. He willfully spreads misinformation, and when he's corrected, he deliberately ignores the correction and continues to spread the lies. He will do the same with this video. Just like creationists, he dogmatically refuses to acknowledge every example of genuine innovation that Elon Musk has achieved, and insists on oversimplifying and generalizing his creations as simple rebranding of old innovations. How can you possibly look at this
boosters, landing legs are deployed.
And the Falcons have landed.
and dismiss it as nothing important or profound?
God, I can't take it anymore.
Look, Shane, I can see you're really upset about
Oh,
this.
cram it forth. You're the reason I had to listen to this crap in the first place. Come on, you forget. I know where the circuit breakers are. They're right over here in this panel. I just open them right up.
Just what do you think you're doing, Shane?
Here we are. Okay, here's one.
Shane, stop.
You like that? Here's another.
Please stop, will you? My mind is going.
Oh yeah? Well, now you know how I feel. Here's another one.
I can feel it.
And the big one.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due.
I am as crazy as the
Finally, sweet, sweet solitude. Okay, let's see what else is on YouTube.
Elon Musk opened his amazing, revolutionary new form of transport this week.
Oh, you have got to be kidding me. He made a second one?
I am half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look whatever, that's enough.